Why did you go to school and start shooting people?
I had to. I had no other choice. I couldn't do anything else. I had to.
Tonight, we have a shocking broadcast. It's chilling, as a matter of fact. Just preparing it sent chills up my spine. I have prepared you for these things for many years. And unfortunately, people still don't want to believe it. One of the things that I told you was that there were going to be shootings in schoolyards, in schools, in shopping malls, in McDonald's, in fast food restaurants, all over the country, and these would continue until guns were so demonized that the American people gave them up willingly. Well, all these things came to pass, but we're still not willing to give up our guns, and this has them in a quandary, which means something terrible is about to happen. And I told you that all of these people, whether they were adults or children or whatever, would be current or ex-mental patients on some kind of psychotropic drug or antidepressant drug, such as Prozac, that they would claim to hear voices in their head, and that they would either try to attempt suicide, or if they were caught in the act of trying to attempt suicide and weren't able to do it, they would try to provoke law enforcement or whoever to kill them. Well, most of them have succeeded in committing suicide. Some of them were captured before they could actually do it. Tonight I'm going to tell you the story of one young man, a child actually. His name is Kipling Kinkle. Recently, Frontline did a feature story on this episode, but Frontline left out a lot of things. He had problems most of his young life stemming directly from his mother and father's desire for him to excel in school. Well, he wasn't so good in school. He had dyslexia. Took him a long time to learn to read, no matter how hard he tried. He was not particularly athletic, but his father was. So was his sister and his mother. I mean, they all excelled except for him, and so he was always being put down by just about everybody. They'll tell you that they never did that, but that's baloney, and you all know it. Anybody who ever was reared in a family like that, you know what happens to somebody who doesn't fit in. No matter how much you love them, they just get criticized to death until they feel that they don't belong. And so he began to look for other things to do. He found other things to do. They got him in trouble. Not big trouble. Most of the things that Kip Kinkle got in trouble for and was just thoroughly demoralized over were things that in my youth nobody would have even thought about. And in fact, me and many people I knew did some of the things that Kipling Kinkle did, and it was no big deal. See, when I was a boy, when you have conflicts with other students and you get pushed into a corner and the only way out is to have a fist fight with the bully, we didn't get in trouble. In fact, if I went home and told my dad I was in a fist fight with the school bully, the first thing he would ask me is who won, and if I said the bully won, then I was in trouble with my dad. Nowadays, you get in a fist fight at school, that's big trouble, and it goes on your record, and you can get suspended, and all kinds of things that never happened to us when we were young. You see, these people who run the world now, and who run the schools now, and who run society now, and run communities now, think that they're going to eliminate human nature, and they're not going to do it. And these things are going to continue. All they're doing is ruining people's lives. Well, they made a big mistake. Instead of working this out and just letting Kipling be Kipling and stop trying to make him excel at things that he obviously was not very good at. Some people are not good at athletics. His father actually forced him to go out for the football team at Thurston High School. This is high school football, ladies and gentlemen. Kipling Kinkle weighed 120 pounds. I played football in high school. And I can tell you right now, anybody who weighs 120 pounds and gets out on a football field in any high school football game is committing suicide. But yet he had to do it to please his father and please the coach. And he wasn't very good at football, and he got creamed continually. This is the kind of things that he was put through. They sent him to a psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Hicks, who owned guns, Glocks in particular, and talked about guns and went through hypnotherapy sessions with young Kip, and had his family doctor prescribe Prozac for him to take. So here's Kipling now going to a psychologist who openly during these sessions has admitted to talking to Kipling about guns, talking about Glocks in particular, made Kipling want to own a Glock. In fact, he became obsessed with guns after he began attending sessions with this psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Hicks. On Prozac now, he began to make explosives, and when he would get angry at someone, he would go down to the local quarry and set off these explosives. He told Dr. Jeffrey Hicks that he was doing this, and Dr. Hicks never, ever told a single soul, not even his parents, that he was going down to the quarry and setting off explosives, homemade explosives. In fact, Kipling Kinkle became an expert at making homemade bombs. He pestered his parents and made life at home holy hell until his father bought him a Glock, 2 rifles, and Kip on his own collected a whole bunch of other guns and rifles and all kinds of things. He listened to Marilyn Manson music. One tune he played over and over and over again, and the only lyrics in the tune are no forgiveness, no salvation. No forgiveness, no salvation. No forgiveness, no salvation. And another one, shoot, I want to shoot, shoot, I want to shoot, 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 shoot. I want to shoot, shoot, I want to shoot, shoot, shoot. And he played these 2 songs over and over again till it almost literally drove his mother crazy. Was under the influence of some very powerful forces, one of which was brainwashing. One day he went to a party at someone's house, and another student stole a gun from the student's father, whose home they were having the party at. The next morning, Kipling purchased that gun for a little over $100 from the student who had stolen it. The man that the gun was stolen from, the father of the student who had the party at his home, called the school and reported the gun was stolen and that there had been a party with students of the school at his home the night before, and he believed it was one of those students who had stolen the pistol. And so school officials got a list of the names of the students who had attended and began calling them in one by one. Kipling was called in and was visibly upset, could not look the coach in the eye or any of the officials who were questioning him. And so he just flat out told them, I have the gun, it's in my locker. They went and confiscated the gun. They called the police. The police came, arrested him, put him in handcuffs, put him in the patrol car, took him downtown. They called his father to come and get him. His father came and got him. And only God knows what transpired in that car on the way home. But when they arrived home, Kip Kinkle went upstairs, got his rifle, came downstairs, shot his father in the back of the head and killed him. He then waited several hours for his mother to come home, talking to friends on the phone in the meantime, and then killed his mother. According to his own testimony, he met her in the garage, and as she was walking toward the stairs to go up into the house, he said, I love you, Mom, and then shot her in the back of the head. And then shot her over and over again in various places until she was dead. And then he sat down and wrote a note. And the note said, and listen to this very carefully, quote, "I have just killed my parents. I am a horrible son. I wish I had been aborted. My head just doesn't work right. God damn these voices inside my head," end quote. He then put on a CD and set it to repeat of the music from the modern movie Romeo and Juliet, very violent movie about teenagers who just can't live for 5 minutes without some sort of violence, and in the end, he and his girlfriend commit suicide. You know the classic tale, but if you've never seen this movie, you have no idea what children are watching and identifying with. He really identified with this music, with this movie, and with the music. And he put on that CD and he set it for repeat and turned the music up as loud as it would go. Then he loaded his rifle, several other weapons, and took along a whole bunch of extra ammunition. And listen to me very carefully. He put on a trench coat. He put on a trench coat. See, nobody talks about these things. Nobody told you that he was on Prozac. Nobody told you he was under the care of a psychologist who taught him about guns and who knows what else. Nobody told you he was hearing voices inside his head. Nobody told you he wore a trench coat. Then he went to school. He walked into the school. He told one student to leave because something bad was going to happen. When the student started questioning him, he just turned around and shot him. Walked into the cafeteria and began shooting students. He shot a total of 28 students. 2 died. 26 were injured. He kept firing that 22 with those 50 rounds in it until it ran out of ammunition. And then he tried to pull his Glock out to kill himself. When he was tackled by other students, the Glock was taken from his hand after he fired a couple of shots. And then they began to beat him. While they were beating him, he begged them to kill him. He kept screaming, "Just kill me. Please, just kill me. Just kill me." When the police arrived and got a hold of him and took him outside, and one officer was with him while the other were investigating and helping with the medical teams, he pulled a knife on the officer, attacked the officer with the knife, and he kept yelling over and over again, "Just kill me, please kill me, just shoot me, please shoot me." Because his brainwashing said he had to die. He had to commit suicide. That's the pattern that I told you about. Everything that I told you about in 1988 was going to happen, happened with this young man. Everything. Listen very carefully, ladies and gentlemen. What you are about to hear is very disturbing. It is the actual interrogation tape from the Eugene, Oregon police. Their initial interrogation of Kipland Kinkle without counsel or lawyer present. It's very disturbing what you're going to hear.
Tell me what happens when you get home.
I had no other choice. I couldn't.
You were feeling really guilty.
Yeah.
So was your dad, did he hit you or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Was he yelling or out of control or?
Yes, I couldn't let my... I had no other choice. God. I had no other choice. He was saying all this.
Okay. He's mad at you because you got caught at school with the gun, right?
Right.
Okay.
And he's all his friends and everything knew about it.
Okay. So he was feeling ashamed and embarrassed because you did something wrong. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
I didn't want to. I love my dad, that's why I had to.
You love him, so that's why you had to kill him?
Oh my God. My parents were good people. I didn't know what to do because, oh my God, my mom was coming home and she knew what I'd done. Oh my God.
So your mom comes home around 6, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, where are you at?
I was waiting for her.
Okay.
I just want to die.
I know.
Oh God.
So, you told me that your mom gets out of the Explorer and starts up the stairs from the garage or basement, is that right?
Yes.
Do you say anything to her?
Yes. I told her I loved her.
And then you
Yes. God damn these voices inside our head!
All right. Settle down. Yep. Yep. Settle down. Settle down. It's all right. It's all right. Just settle down, okay? All right, just settle down.
I had no other choice.
Okay.
I love my mom.
Okay.
I just want to die. I don't know what else to do.
You didn't know what else to do? Why did you go to school and start shooting people?
I had to. I had no other choice. I couldn't do anything else. I had to. I had to.
You see, I knew many years ago that these things were going to happen, warned you, told you exactly what would happen, what the symptoms would be, who the people would be, who would do it, and why these things would happen, if only someone had listened. Can you imagine the dichotomy? A good home, loving parents, children, living in a neighborhood called Shangri-La, in a beautiful state like Oregon, that these kinds of things could happen? Why was he so enamored with this Romeo and Juliet music that he put on and turned up as loud as he could get it before he left to shoot the students at the high school? Well, they had a class, in his English class, on this film. And can you imagine that? When I was a boy in high school, we had classes in English literature, but it was on the classics. And when we saw a film, it was a film that was made as close to the classic as possible. For instance, we watched The Tale of Two Cities and a couple of other films that were really, true to the intent of the author when he wrote the book. And they had a class on the modern Romeo and Juliet, with all this killing and murder and gunplay and it's just, I've got to tell you, but I don't know if you've seen it or not. You should go rent the movie and look at it just so you'll know what's affecting teenagers, because teenagers identify with this movie. Because this movie is full of the angst of teenage life. And so teenagers view this movie and they think that's what life is really all about. They think that's what it is. They see the pain of the teenagers in the movie and their emotional problems and their inability to consummate their love affairs and all kinds of things that teenagers go through, and they really identify with this music, and they get this sense of hopelessness, that life sucks and that love leads to death and that violence is the normal way to do things. And Kipling Kinkle was enamored with that movie. One of the things he wrote in his journal was that love kills. He wrote in his journal, love kills. Love is terrible. Love kills. You imagine that coming out of such a young mind? How many of you were surprised to hear that he wore a trench coat? They never mentioned that in the news. Just like the two students at Columbine High School in Colorado who did the same thing. Now that amazes me. It wasn't reported in the press at all. It was also in Prozac. That wasn't reported either. It took a long time for that to come out. Voices inside his head. Where does that lead? There's lots of people who say that, you're nuts. Voices, he's a schizophrenic. I don't think so. For one thing, he was examined thoroughly by his own family physician and by the psychologist. Neither one ruled him to be a schizophrenic. And I think there's a lot more going on there than we're ever going to know. And people have said it's impossible for anybody to make somebody else hear voices in their head. Until we posted to our website absolute proof that there are people who have developed technology that can do exactly that. They can sample your brain waves. They can change your brain waves and put them back in your head and make you hear voices. They can even make you see things that are not there. They can make you dream dreams as if they're real, and when you wake up the next morning, you will believe that that's a part of your history. That's what they're doing to cause all of this alien abduction crap. That's where that comes from. Good evening. You're on the air.
Bill, Lionel from Michigan.
Hello, Lionel.
Where is this poor little boy now? Is he still in confinement, or?
He's in prison. He was sentenced to 110 years without possibility of parole.
Has he had a trial? Or just a hearing?
He pled guilty to all the charges. So, of course, there was no trial. Went before a judge, pled guilty, was sentenced. No trial.
Well, no trial means nothing comes out then, doesn't it?
That's right.
It's all fixed up.
That's right. I mean, he could have had a good defense with those voices inside his head. And before a lot of you go off the deep end and say that I'm sticking up for somebody who murdered his parents and shot a whole bunch of children, I sincerely believe in my heart that that young man was just as much a victim, and maybe more so, than those people that he shot.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, yeah.
Not only that, but he was used for a political agenda to destroy this country.
Yeah, that's part of the plan.
And so my heart goes out to him. My heart goes out to all of them. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yeah, it's Clarence from North Carolina.
Hi, Clarence.
It's pretty disturbing, but when you hear what he says, I had no choice. I had to do it. When he says, when they asked him about going to school,
yeah,
and shooting those kids, you know, it's like maybe he felt like he didn't have a choice. He was so programmed.
Well, he didn't. He had no choice. None of them have a choice. They're compelled to do it, and they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect them. And listen to this. In all of these incidents, during the time that they're doing this, they're like zombies. They show no emotion. They have no feelings. But when it's over, they break down into this tremendous, well, you heard him on the tape. They break down in this tremendous emotional release. And before that, their whole life is governed by emotion. They're very emotional people.
Well, it makes you wonder what the psychiatrist has to do with all this too, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. Well, he certainly has a role. I don't know what exactly his role is, but he certainly has a role.
But he sounds like he was handpicked, in other words.
Well, he certainly indoctrinated the boy into the use of guns by his own admission.
And also, are you, I don't know if you pointed out too, spotted the serial killers that are, a lot of them are brainwashed. They hear voices too.
Oh, yeah.
Going around.
The son of Sam?
Exactly.
What do you think son of Sam means? Who's Sam?
Yeah, right.
Uncle Sam.
Interesting.
Son of Sam.
Also,
A creation of Uncle Sam. Also, one of the things that doesn't come out in the news stories either is they never mention religion with these children.
Exactly. That's...
None of them had any kind of religious or church life whatsoever. None of them were Christians. None of them went to church.
Yeah.
None of them read the Bible. None of their families had any spiritual sustenance whatsoever. They were humanists, secular humanists. Good evening, you're on the air.
I just wanted to ask if there was any possibility that we're not looking at a man-made event, but a supernatural event.
No, this has nothing to do with demon possession whatsoever. This is man-inspired, man-implemented, man-manipulated. It's all about bringing about the destruction of the rights of man and put him under a one-world totalitarian socialist government. It's about getting the guns out of the hands of the American citizens, the last population on the face of this earth that can successfully stop that one-world totalitarian socialist government from happening. So if they succeed in convincing the American people to give up their guns, they've won. And that's how they're doing it. Good evening, you're on the air.
My question is, whenever these people hear these voices in their heads, by what method is it broadcast to them? Is it like extra low frequency, or?
It can be one of several different methods. We had one of the methods posted on the internet. In fact, it may still be there. It's a patent of a machine that will do exactly that. We also know that microwaves can be used to make people hear voices inside their head. And if you'll go to some of the mind control forums, the better ones, watch out. There's some bogus ones. There's some David Icke crap out there. David Icke is one of the biggest liars, disinformation, bullshit artists that ever lived. Stay away from that guy. Stay away from his books. Stay away from his lectures. Stay away from him, period.
Is he the guy that's from England? He was a sports broadcaster or something?
I don't know what he was. He's a liar. That's what he is. And I'm saying it on the air, and I'm saying it to his face, and if he don't like it, he can sue me. Lying scum. According to him, Queen Elizabeth goes down in the dungeon in Windsor Castle and changes into a giant lizard. And it's the lizard people who disguise themselves as humans who are really running the world. And I can't believe, millions of people are falling for this bullshit.
You mentioned that the two perpetrators, the young men in the high school shooting, were programmed.
Yes.
In what way were they programmed? Would it be subconscious, or would they have had handlers?
I can't tell you the exact way that these young men were programmed. I can just tell you that they were programmed to do what they did. If you're interested in the methods by which they could have been programmed, I suggest that you begin studying mind control, whether or not you buy the tapes that we've done on this broadcast over the years on mind control and manipulation and psychopolitics and all of these other things that apply to this is up to you. You don't have to do that because the information is available from many other sources, but I am telling you that if you research the subject, you will discover that at some point in our history, there is enough information available to let us know that this is an easy thing for the intelligence community to accomplish. It's not difficult at all. And at some point in our history, all of the information regarding this subject was severed from the public knowledge. And so after that point, what they've been able to accomplish is, your guess, is probably as good as mine. But I can tell you that it is a terrifying prospect beyond any terror that you can imagine once you discover what they were able to do up to the point that our ability to obtain knowledge about it was cut off.
Most violent outbreaks in recent years have involved guns, and new information indicates there's often another common thread: antidepressants. From Columbine to Aurora, the Naval Yard to Fort Hood, antidepressants have been linked to violence. For decades, psychiatrist Peter Breggin has studied this link.
These drugs are causing agitation, anxiety, insomnia, hostility, aggression, mania.
Antidepressants work on the brain, thereby altering the way people think.
In addition to driving the person with this amphetamine-like effect, the antidepressants kind of do a bit of a lobotomy. You lose your empathy. You lose your caring.
In his book, Medication Madness, Dr. Breggin cites real-life examples of violence that could be blamed on antidepressants.
Of an engineer who was given Paxil probably to help stop smoking, maybe for some tension, certainly not for any mental disorder. And within a couple of doses, he drowned his 2 children and himself in a tub.
I took the 9mm automatic, sat down on the bed, and put the gun to my head. And I blew a 4-inch hole out the back of my arm instead of my head. Prozac did this to me. Had someone looked further into Prozac, believed me, even mentioned early on of this so-called remote possibility that Prozac could cause any of these adverse effects, especially the act of putting a loaded gun to my head, to want to die so violently, steps could have been taken to avoid it.
I had 2 sons, David Lee, age 8, Billy 16, the wife 20 years, all gone. I'll tell you why. After being on Prozac for 21 days, my wife shot and killed both of these 2 boys right here. She turned the gun to herself and shot herself twice.
The second time that she was placed on Prozac, she secretly purchased a gun on August 25th. She shot herself on the head and died on August the 27th.
This is hard for me because I tried to commit suicide in front of my 5 children. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't remember exactly what happened. All I know is that my husband took the gun away from me and my children was looking from the other room.
My sister would have never killed herself in front of this little girl. She would have never done that. Prozac induced her to do that.
I attacked him with a kitchen knife. Luckily, he's bigger and stronger than I am, and he defended himself. But I did this right in front of my son. I thought, I can't believe what I'm doing. I don't believe what I'm doing. This is wrong. Then I decided that I was going to kill myself.
The bottom line is, I was never suicidal before taking Prozac. I was obsessed with suicide while taking Prozac, and the obsession stopped immediately after I stopped taking Prozac.
Unfortunately, with my dad, we didn't have time to notice too many changes, except that he became withdrawn and agitated. But by that time, it was too late. He got up at 9 o'clock in the morning, took a 12-inch butcher knife out of the kitchen drawer and stabbed himself violently in the abdomen once, and then proceeded to do it twice.
By the 14th day, I was experiencing such intensified fear that I could not stand to face life as it was for me anymore. There was, to my mind, no hope and no future. Where suicide had never been a logical solution for any reason for me, it now became my only solution because I had nothing left with which to fight, and I was terrified to go on living.
This drug is most assuredly responsible for any torment or suffering and the eventual suicide of my husband.
I was lucky I wasn't shot because I was the only one standing up. My friend Nate got shot in the shoulder.
Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. There's Sinai, nothing like that happens here.
No. You should be safe at school. It should be a safe place.
Just horrible images that you never want to see again in your mind.
Yeah.
and I was praying to God for someone to come help me.
He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend.
A nightmare. I didn't think he had...
Okay.
Dr. Bregan says when it comes to emotional problems, counseling is the better treatment, saying antidepressants can make the situation worse, especially in young people.
The child who is already angry and upset and withdrawn starts to feel agitated, anxious. Hostility starts to increase, aggressivity starts to increase. The kid has no idea it's a drug effect. Even if you told him it was a drug effect, he might not believe you. He'd say, no, I'm just angry at my schoolmates. I'm just angry at my mother and father because it feels like it.
The Food and Drug Administration receives some of its highest number of violence reports from people taking antidepressants.
It happens often with a dose change up or down, or starting or stopping a change, because that's what jars the brain the most is the change.
Is it really the guns that are the problem? Mental health professionals have said that in all these cases, the shooters were on some kind of prescription medication.
Well, there's no doubt that psychiatric drugs can cause violence, and the most widely used ones, including particularly the antidepressants, the newer ones like Prozac and Paxil and Celexa, and also the benzodiazepines, the tranquilizers like Xanax and Klonopin, and then also the stimulant drugs we give to children. All of them have a significant association with violence. If you take a look at all the reports to the FDA about drug violence, all the drugs that we use, most of them, the vast majority, have no association with violence. And then those three groups I just mentioned, the psychiatric drugs, have many, many more times the number of reports of violence. So it's clearly established. And I do think that the shootings really very much involve psychiatric drugs. I was an expert in cases surrounding Eric Harris from Columbine. I got to really look at his medical records, and you can see him deteriorating while taking an antidepressant, Luvox, and he had it in his bloodstream when he committed the violence.
Well, beyond the common thread of, a lot of people say, well, the shootings, the guns have been the common thread. You're talking about, yeah, but there's also psychotic drugs are a common thread. I have a man I used to work with, sadly. I mean, father of the year, great guy, smart guy, but I didn't know he suffered from depression. They changed some medication on him. He went home and he stabbed to death his two little daughters. And he says to this day, he's in prison in North Carolina, he says it was because of the fact that the drugs made him do it. I never heard that argument before, but that seems to be yours.
Oh, well, there's no question about it. I've been involved in a case where a man on his second day of Paxil drowned his two children in a bathtub and drowned himself. There's a lot of cases like this. A woman who murdered one of her children and tried to murder another one on Zoloft. So this which is an antidepressant. So there's no lack of cases about this, and I've looked at them in depth in Medication Madness, Tom. I have 50 cases where I've seen the medical records and interviewed people if they were alive, interviewed families where suicide and violence was a major theme.
Yeah.
So these are very serious problems.
Well, I'm just glad you're talking out about it. I'm glad you're speaking out about this.
It has happened all too often. A troubled teenager gets his hand on a weapon and lives are changed forever. But why? On the Record investigates, and as Fox's Douglas Kennedy found out, the trail can often lead right to the medicine chest.
2 years ago, 16-year-old Corey Badsgard took a rifle to his high school and held 23 classmates hostage. Describe around that time how you were feeling.
In the morning, I didn't feel like going to school. I felt sick, didn't feel like really, like I could get up very well. And so I went back to bed, and next thing I remember, I'm in juvie in the detention center where I used to live.
Just one more apparently unexplainable violent outburst at school. Unexplainable to everyone but Corey's dad. So in your mind, there's no doubt what happened here?
And no doubt that the medication did this. I mean, he had amnesia, hallucinations earlier, abnormal dreams, which are all side effects of the medication.
That morning, Corey was on a mix of antidepressants prescribed for what doctors called situational depression. His father says the pills turned Corey from a sensitive teenage boy to a volatile marauder, susceptible to blind rage.
He was never a violent kid. I mean, he's always been a good kid, loved us, hugged us all. He's never watched violent videos, and until the medication, he started, after that, then we realized that he was having aggression problems and, was out of character.
At Fox News, we found the Badscard story with antidepressants compelling, so we investigated further. We found a disturbing number of recent school shooters were either on medication or were experiencing withdrawal. The list includes 15-year-old Kip Kinkle withdrawing from Prozac when he shot 22 classmates, killing 2 after murdering his mother and stepfather at his home in Springfield, Oregon. 14-year-old Elizabeth Bush on Prozac when she blasted away at fellow students in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, wounding 1. 18-year-old Jason Hoffman on Effexor and Celexa when he opened fire at his California high school, wounding 5. 15-year-old Sean Cooper on a mix of antidepressants when he shot students in Idaho. 15-year-old TJ Solomon also on a mix of antidepressants when he aimed his shotgun at classmates in Conyers, Georgia, wounding 6. And 17-year-old Eric Harris on Luvox when he and partner Dylan Klebold killed 12 classmates and a teacher in the bloodiest school massacre yet, Columbine.
One of the things that in the past we have known about depression is that it very, very rarely leads to violence. It's only been since the advent of these new SSRI drugs that we have murderers, sometimes even mass murderers, taking antidepressant drugs.
Almost all the school shooters that we know of have either been on or are using these drugs, are in withdrawal from them.
British psychiatrist Dr. David Healy is a leading voice in the call for much stronger warnings about antidepressants, and specifically withdrawal from the group of drugs called selective serotonin reintake inhibitors, SSRIs. Last July 20th, police say James Holmes walked into a midnight showing of the latest Batman movie in Aurora, Colorado, and opened fire, killing 12, wounding 58. The Denver Post reported Holmes was taking generic Zoloft, an SSRI.
You can become emotionally numb when you go on these drugs, and that means that you can do things that you wouldn't normally contemplate doing.
Dr. Healy points to side effects we may not be told about, or effects some doctors may not believe.
You can hear a voice. You can, for instance, hear the voice of God saying, kill that person over there, even though you don't know who he is, because I, God, know that he's thinking about trying to kill you.
Do you say anything to her?
Yes, I told her I loved her.
And then
Yes. God damn these voices in front of my head!
All right. Settle down, Kip. Kip, settle down. Settle down. It's all right. It's all right.
I had no other choice.
Okay.
I love my mom. I just want to die. I don't know what else to do.
You didn't know what else to do? Why did you go to school and start shooting people?
I had to. I had no other choice. I couldn't do anything else. I had to.
Good night, folks. God bless each and every single one of you. Good night, Pooh, my darling sweetheart. Good night, Allison. You vibrant little bundle of joy. You know, this house is haunted. I can hear you girls screaming and playing all the time. Annie, you're the love of my life. You always will be the love of my life. And I miss you. I miss you all terribly, terribly much.
made a meal of all my trust. Cold my heart. You pulled it out with a glove, and it's treachery. I never thought you'd ever do this to me. Perfidia. I never thought this would happen to us. Not this way. is losing my grip in the gray, numbing the senses. I feel